My name is Shane Herman.
And I'm Shannon Herman.
And we've been married for about 5 years. In the beginning, I thought I was being a good husband to my wife, and little did I realize I wasn't being the husband I wanted to be. A lot of it had to do with the fact that I never had an example as a young boy of what a good father was.
And I grew up in a very broken, damaged home. I had a father that was addicted to pornography most of my childhood life. And I had a mother that wasn't very nice, called me names, teased me. And it led to a life of being a kid that just wasn't accepted. And I struggled.
I grew up in a home that was also surrounded by physical and mental abuse. Being led to believe that adultery, violence, and just a lot of bad things were the way of life. A lot of selfishness. About a year ago in our marriage, I was working a lot, 50, 60 hours a week, working as a dive instructor on the side. My main job kept me working at nights, on the weekends with a rotating shift. So I spent more time away from home than I did. But I thought by being a good provider that I was being a good husband. Because I didn't have the example as a kid, I never really realized there was more to life than just being a good provider. I missed out on actually taking care of my wife's emotional, physical needs. At times, I was just a real jerk and very unapproachable. And my wife spent most of the time alone at home. For weeks and weeks on end. I was there at night, but I wasn't there.
And I found myself alone again, and I started to change and started to dress different and act different, and found new friends, listened to different music, and it put me in a very, very dark place.
I also found myself surrounded by friends that were very toxic, as most guys do. I was led away. I spent more and more time away from home. I took my wife for granted, and the toxicity of the people just led me to making decisions I shouldn't have, which were mainly just thinking about myself and not about my wife.
I let people convince me that Shane didn't love me, that he was selfish, and it was all about him and not about me. And before I knew it, I had an affair.
About a year ago, the truth came out, and I found out about the affair. Our lives literally fell apart in one night. We were headed for a divorce, and our children were fixing to be thrown into the very life we didn't want them to grow up in, the one that we had to grow up in. That night, I used the Bible as a weapon, and I shouldn't have. I was throwing it around, screaming, "This isn't right. What you're doing is wrong," knowing inside my own heart that I had been selfish too. After everything came to a head that night, later on I found myself reading that very same Bible, and I was led to a story of Hosea, and after reading that story, I felt God tell me, almost like gripping me, saying, "Son, you're going to stay. You're going to love your wife, and I'm going to show you what a real father and what a real husband is all about." I went to my wife that night crying, and we talked.
Hours went by, and we cried, and we held each other. And I don't know when it happened, but in a pit as deep as it could get, I knew God reached down and he grabbed me and he said, "This isn't over for you."
During that night, we both realized that what we had been looking for from each other, we couldn't find. We couldn't make each other happy. We were missing God in our lives. We had never known, neither one of us had ever really had God in our lives. And we made mistakes. But now, we fell on our knees that night and we gave our lives to Christ. He's restored our marriage, and He's made it stronger than we could have ever imagined. He's restored our home. He's worked miracles in our children's lives, and He's brought us out of the darkness and into a light that we never knew we could have.
And I just really want people to know that there's nothing ever so bad that God can't reach down and save you and pick you up and make everything right. And not a day goes by that it doesn't hurt. So if ever you feel indifferent, just call out to Christ, because He's there and He'll save you.
I never knew I could have the love I have for someone as what I do. I only wished I could have been a much better husband in the past, but I will be forevermore. And my children will not grow up with the life I had. I will teach them what it is for my son to be a man, to respect women for what God wanted us to be a good husband and be a good father. I also will treat my wife as she truly will be treated the rest of her life, as the godly woman that I've been blessed with. And my wish is that all men would raise your sons up to respect women and not what this world wants us to do, but also to love your wives and honor them as the blessing that God has given you. Please, love your family, love your wives, and love your children. And I thank God for the second chance He's given me in my life with my wife that I love very, very much.